Shalom, Israel. This is your brother Shamala Kassad. Just want to give all thanks and praise to the Most High, Yahweh, and His beloved Son, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Today is Thursday, June 29th, 2023. And right now, I got breaking news for you, y'all. Breaking news. The Supreme Court has overturned affirmative action, but on the collegiate level, for colleges. So we're about to read some of these articles and we're going to break down what's this going to ultimately mean for people in the society. So without further ado, here goes. This right here is taken from Yahoo News. The Supreme Court declared affirmative action programs at public and private colleges and universities unconstitutional on Thursday in a decision written by Chief Justice John Roberts. The decision puts an end to the most system designed to help Black and Latino students access higher education after centuries of racial discrimination. Colleges and universities will no longer be allowed to seek greater diversity of their student bodies by preferencing race, although student applicants will not be precluded from discussing their race during the application process as it relates to their individual experience. The most immediate effect will be a decrease in the number of Black and Latino students admitted to the most exclusive schools, studies show. So this right here already lets you know that the main people that's going to be suffering from this is Black and Hispanic students, because they're going to be the main ones that the leg up that they had to go to some of the more prestigious universities, the more selective universities out there. They're now going to be on the first on the chopping block where pretty much diversity and acceptances is going to be no more. You understand what I'm saying? So that lets you know that Israel, the Blacks and Hispanics, what I'm saying, going to be the main ones that's going to be suffering from this off top. So let's continue. In his opinion, Roberts stated that the schools are not permitted to judge candidates for admission based on the race. But listen, let's keep it a grip. How many of these more prestigious universities really going to follow that? I'm pretty sure there are going to be situations where even with the higher the Black and Hispanic with higher grades going to still get turned down, and some C plus or C student that might be white or Asian going to still be able to get in. Watch. You know what I'm saying? Just watch. Just give it some time. It may not be that way now, but just give it some time. That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm telling you. Many universities for too long had done just the opposite, Roberts wrote. And in doing so, they have concluded wrongly that the touchstone of the individual's identity is not challenges vested, skills built, or lessons learned, but the color of their skin. Constitutional history does not tolerate that choice. So they're basically saying like now it's going to go back to the merit system skill now. It's no more you get in because they need to fulfill a quota of having a certain amount of Black students, certain amount of Hispanic students, and so on and so forth. That's dead now. You know what I'm saying? So now it's going to be clearly on strictly on merit. And I think, and me, quite frankly, I think even with that, you're going to have stories of shenanigans and bullshit with that. That some of these Black and Hispanic students going to still get turned down, still get turned away, and they might have like a A plus average, and some C student white boy gonna still get in. Some C plus student Asian, gonna still get in. I'm telling you, give it some time. Think the Most High gonna reveal it. Adopted in the late 1960s in the wake of the civil rights movement, College affirmative actions policies aim to increase Black and Latin attainment in higher education. Yeah, because the real reason behind that was way before then, especially like in the 1800s and early 1900s, a lot of times, um, where back then, a lot of Black students was not allowed to go to the same universities as white students. That's why that was the birth of a lot of these HBCUs. You understand what I'm saying? And then eventually, some of the other the was that PWI, private white institutions that they started, to ease up off the racism and let some Black and Hispanic folks in, but there's still some shenanigans with that. So the civil rights college affirmative action policies that came in the 1960s, that was really to give, Jake, Ephraim, Simeon, Benjamin, the children of Israel, a actual chance of getting a higher education in some of these prestigious universities that more than likely wasn't HBCUs. They face instant opposition from many white Americans and conservative politicians who came to see them as a form of reverse racism, quote unquote, that favored Black and Latin students over white students. So yeah, and that's the thing. Any leg up that you Black man, you Hispanic man get in this society, you gonna have them pasty people gonna come out and cry reverse racism. They're gonna cry affirmative action. And then the funny thing is, even if you do it on straight, even if you do get there or do become successful on straight merit, you know, straight achievements, no handouts, no nothing, they still gonna cry foul because they expect you to be at the bottom all the time. And then when they start seeing you doing good, and in some cases, or in a lot of cases, start seeing you do better than them, that's when they come out with that reverse racism bullshit. It's going on way all the way back then, and you still see that nonsense today. So trust and believe. A lot of these spacey people, you know what I'm saying? The children of Edom and some of these other nations too, Moab, Ammon. Trust me, a lot of them is rejoicing right now because this joint got overturned. Because they know the Black man and Hispanic man, they're gonna get the shaft. You know, when it comes to the college admissions. All right, let's continue. In the 21st century, the artificially the artificially low admittance rate of Asian American applicants became a focus of opposition to affirmative actions. Yeah, because you want to know one thing that they recently found out, that first of all, a lot of these so-called Asians wasn't as super intelligent as the stereotypes are. The stereotypes prove them to be. That's number one. Number two, when that whole thing happened with what's that Lori Loughlin from Full House, what's that Aunt Rebecca from Full House, you know what I'm saying, when she got knocked with that college cheating scandal, around that time it came out that a lot of folks that was like cheating and have their children cheat on exams to get into these prestigious universities. A lot of them were Asian folks. A lot of them cats was getting caught up with cheating and all of that. So when they start seeing a lot of these low acceptance rates of Asians of Asians getting into these prestigious colleges, that's when they started to cry foul, and that's when the pasty people started to cry foul and start complaining about affirmative action. Asian American plaintiffs were at the center of the challenges in the Student for Fair Admissions versus President and Fellows of Harvard College and Student for Fair Admissions, Inc. versus University of North Carolina, which have now ended affirmative action programs nationwide. People rally in support of affirmative action in college admissions as arguments start on the case of Supreme Court on Capitol Hill on Monday, October 31st, 2022, in Washington, D.C. The split The split along ideological lines in both cases, conservative Justice Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett joined Roberts in the North Carolina case, where liberal justices Elena Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor, and Katanji Brown Jackson dissented. The result in the Harvard case came along the same lines, but the vote of 6-2 because Jackson recused from the case. So she didn't even vote. Katanji Brown Jackson, she didn't even vote. She recused herself from the case. She didn't want to vote on it. The majority opinion rejected the affirmative action policies used by both Harvard and UNC as failing to meet the standards the court previously set out, for not having a logical endpoint, and most importantly, for the majority, for violating the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. The Harvard and UNC admissions program cannot be reconciled with the guarantees of the Equal Protection Clause, Roberts wrote. Both programs lack sufficiently focused and measured objectives warranting the use of race, unavoidably employ race in a negative manner, involve racial stereotyping, and lack meaningful endpoints. We were never permitted admissions to work that way, and will not do so today. Roberts, in Roberts' opinion, pointed back to Justice John Marshall Harlan's dissent in the 1896 separate but equal case of Plessy versus Ferguson, to argue the use of race, even to promote the equality of a long discriminated against minority group, was unconstitutionally uh, pernicious. I think that's how you say it. In view of the Constitution and the eyes of the law, there is there in this country no superior, dominant, ruling class citizens, Harlan wrote and Roberts quoted, which is bullshit because we all know that's a damn lie. The quote unquote ruling class are, the Edomites, what I'm saying, the so called pasty people. There's no case here, which is bullshit too. Our Constitution is colorblind. That's bullshit as well. And neither knows nor tolerate classes among citizens. And we all know that's BS. This outcome is not a surprise. The court's conservatives have long taken a dim view of affirmative action. The last major case, 2016, Fisher versus University of Texas, only achieved a majority that upheld some uses of affirmative action due to Justice Antonin Scalia's death. With Anthony Kennedy's departure in 2018 and Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death in 2020, affirmative action's fate was all but sealed. So yeah, it was a long time coming. That's basically what they're saying. It's a long time coming. Affirmative action programs in education grew out the efforts to promote racial equality. This began in the post-Civil War period, known as the Reconstruction, through the establishment of the Freedmen Bureau, educational institutions like Howard University, and failed efforts to redistribute land and wealth. The 14th Amendment was also approved in the spirit of the promoting racial equality following the end of slavery. University of North Carolina Chancellor Kevin what Gusky Wicks, however you say it, talks about reports outside of the U.S. Supreme Court after oral arguments in the Student for Fair Admissions versus University of North Carolina. The reactionary movements of ex-slavers, however, blunted these efforts and by 1890 defeated them. In 1896, the Supreme Court approved segregation policies in its infamous decision in the Plessy versus Ferguson. In 1961, amid the civil rights ferment in the Jim Crow South, President John F. Kennedy signed an executive order that ordered government contractors to take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and the employees are treated during employment without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin. You know what I'm saying? And that's another thing that we're gonna go into later on, and that the whole thing, shout out to BGS Ibmore because he was the one that broke it down. That affirmative action was really, as far as for the jobs, was really started to help benefit black men, to help black men get, you know, get like help them be able to get jobs, so able to survive and thrive in this world. But the thing is that a completely different outcome happened, and I'm gonna get into that later on. His successor, President Lyndon B. Johnson, followed with a similar order using the affirmative action phrasing. He also signed the Civil Rights Act, which banned racial discrimination in employment and established the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Yeah, because back then, even in the 60s, listen, a lot of times black men was getting looked over for jobs, even though they was well qualified, had the experience, so on and so forth, all because of the color of their skin. So that's when those laws, the EEO, you know what I'm saying, and the Civil Rights Act and affirmative action for the employment side of things, that's when all those came into effect. The spirit of affirmative action was voluntarily adopted at colleges and universities. Many of these programs operated on a quota system with a set number of administration admissions guaranteed for black students. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like for a lot of these colleges and eventually some of these jobs, like it was, it's pretty much a quota. You got, out of 100 people in your company, you got to hire at least 10 black folks. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's all about. And what ended up happening was that, that's how a lot of folks, got their jobs. The dude think that he got a job off merit and strength, but really he got it off of, you know, it's crazy. But these policies faced strong oppositions from white Americans across the country, particularly as economic growth slowed in the 1970s. They splintered um, liberal coalitions as white people saw affirmative action as reducing as their children's chances of reproducing or exceeding their parents' economic position. So yeah, a lot, these pasty people, they saw that affirmative action pretty much spent like to them pretty much saw it as their loss, their chances of thriving, their children's chances of thriving was gonna reproduce, and that's when they started doing shenanigans with that. That's when they started coming up with some shenanigans. In 1978, the Supreme Court heard arguments in its first big affirmative action case. Regents of the University of California, um, California versus Bake, in splintering decision, the court ruled that racial quotas for admissions were unconstitutional, but upheld the ability of schools to use race to some degree in admissions. The question was to what degree and to what reason. In a solo opinion, Justice Lewis Powell decreed that the increasing student body diversity was the lone reason to allow race-based admissions. The court fully adopted this reasoning in its 2003 decision in the Grutter versus Bollinger, while declaring points-based admissions policy that considered race unconstitutional. In that decision, however, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor declared that race-based admissions must have some endpoint. Supreme Court big equals racist attack on affirmative action. This is people that was protesting it back in the day. Demonstrators protest at the Supreme Court's 1978 decision banning the use of racial quotas in school admission. The court takes the law school at its word that it would like nothing better than to find out race-neutral admissions formula and would terminate misuse of racial preferences as soon as practicable, O'Connor wrote at the time. The court expects that 25 years from now, the use of racial preferences will no longer be necessary to further the interests approved today. The court has now ended gutted those precedents and ended affirmative action 21 years later. The dissenting justices to Thursday's ruling note the extreme irony of the majority use of the 14th Amendment to end programs aimed at reproducing greater equality. Greater racial equality. The court subverts the constitutional guarantees of equal protection by further entrenching racial inequality in education. The very foundation of our democratic governor and pluralistic society, Sotomayor wrote in the dissent on the Harvard case. It is no small irony that a judgment the majority hands down today will forestall the end of race disparity in the country, making the colorblind world that will make wistful touts much more difficult to accomplish. Jackson wrote in the dissent on the UNC case. While the decision ends race-based admission policies, it does not deny the use of all forms of racial identification in admissions, so long as they through the lens of the applicant experience in individual. Let me see how much further I got. Yeah, it's almost I'm almost done. Nothing in this opinion shall be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant discussion on how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise, Roberts wrote. Still, Roberts added, university may not simply establish through application essays or other means that regime we hold unlawful today. Which again, some of these, listen, a lot of these universities, they're not going to follow suit. A lot of them going to take it as, oh, now I've been overruled. Now I don't have to let in black people. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to see, you know what I'm saying? You're going to see situations of black and Hispanic folks, A1 and college entry essay, A1 scores, top of the class and whatnot, and still getting turned down because, you know, racism. Let's keep it a grip. In a footnote, Roberts state that the decision does not apply to military academies. Of course not. They want it. As much as you black and Hispanics to join the military academy so that you could give your life for the country and be used as a pawns to conquer and subdue other nations. So of course they're not going to move to that. It's not clear how colleges and universities will respond. 9 states, including California and Michigan, have already banned the use of affirmative action in state schools and missions. Despite these bans, they have sought other ways to create racially diverse student bodies. It is not immediately clear what the court's decision means for schools seeking alternative approaches to use a diverse student body. In an email to the Harvard community, Harvard University's leadership affirmed that its commitment to racial diversity and declared that it would be drawing on the talent and expertise of our Harvard community to determine how to preserve, consistent with the court's new proceeding, our essential values. So yeah, that's it on that. You know what I'm saying? It's a long article, but it lets you know, listen, basically for the most part, they about to listen. A lot of folks, a lot of maybe like Gen Z and maybe Gen Alpha, this place lasts long enough, which I hope not. You know what I'm saying? That their dreams to get some of these higher colleges, these upper colleges, is going to get dampened. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong. Some of these universities is still going to be playing by the book, but some of these other universities going to be playing dirty now. Now, a lot of folks a lot of black and Hispanic students is pretty much going to get left in the cold. And you know the funny thing is, even with the repeal of that, you know what's going to end up happening? You're still going to have situations of the best and the brightest Black and Hispanic students with the highest grades going to be applying for universities like Harvard and other top tier universities, and they still going to get looked over for Asians that might have a B or maybe a C plus average. I'm telling you, that's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. Because when we, any advantages that we get, they want to acquire affirmative action and reverse racism. When we do it without no advantages or when we do it without no advantages or handouts, they still want to acquire reverse racism. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know what I'm saying? I just want to do a quick housekeeping. Um, if you like the content, if you're enjoying the show so far, please like, share, and subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Share, tell a friend. And also, if you enjoy the content of this channel, please, and if the spirit moves you, please, donate to the Cash App, $ I am Sham 12. That's the Cash App right there. You know what I'm saying? So let's get back to the show. Now, like I was saying, there's another thing on how, remember when I said how the affirmative action was really done for Black men, and that how we basically benefited the least? Believe it or not, we benefited the least out of affirmative action hires. Do you want to know who really benefited the most from the affirmative action hires? Do you really want to know who really benefited the most? White women. Look it up. White women have benefited the most from affirmative action hires, because what was eventually added into the system or the laws for the affirmative action was that if you were a person of color, you're Black, Hispanic, Native American, Asian, whatever, you was considered, that counted as a minority. But guess what? If you was a woman, you was counted as a minority too, because back then it was not a lot of women in the workforce. So if the workforce was 95% men, you know what I'm saying, 95% white men, and a white woman came on board, at the job, she was considered a minority. You understand what I'm saying? Or it's a case where like 95% men, you know, uh, 90% white men, 5% Black men, and a white woman comes on board. Guess what? She was still a minority. So that was their loophole to get around the system on, affirmative action. And now they use it now to they use affirmative action being used even more now to hire majority women. That's why you look in a lot of these fields, a lot of these office jobs and stuff like that. All you see is women. Sorry, pardon me real quick. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. No, like I was saying, that it's mainly white women that benefited the most from affirmative action hires, and that on top of that, It was not only that, it was that was also used eventually throughout the decades, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even now in the 2000s into now, to majority hire women. So basically now is women regardless of race benefited the most of affirmative action hires. You understand what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Which leads me for this article. Shh. All right, sorry about that. Sorry about that again. All right, now I want to read this article real quick. Taken from the Reuters. With Supreme Court affirmative action ruling, it is time for companies to take a hard look at their corporate diversity programs. So that's another thing. That's going to be the next thing that's going to be on the chopping block. 'Cause they just did it with the colleges. What's next? These workplaces. And like I said, who's the main one that benefiting the most from affirmative action? Historically, it's been white women, but now it's been all women. So this is from today. Affirmative action in higher education suffered a major loss after Supreme Court decisions today in Student for Fair Admissions Inc. versus Harvard and Students for Fair Admissions include Inc. versus UNC. But in employment context, affirmative actions appear to be more prevalent than ever. Yeah, because that's where it originally began. Most companies don't use the label affirmative action in their diversity programs. Nonetheless, from the focus on ESG, the rise of equity, parlance, and corporate diversity initiatives, companies remain under heavy pressure to take race conscious employment actions. Hold up, there's some noise in the background. Let me tend to that real quick. All right, let's say, let me fix this volume real quick. Just get them on. All right, sorry about that. This guy set the mood. Most companies don't use the label affirmative action in their diversity programs. Nonetheless, from the focus of the ESG to the rise of equity parlance and corporate diversity initiatives, companies remain under heavy pressure to take race conscious employment actions. The pressure had been enabled by common misunderstandings of civil rights rules governing employers, influenced by the previous status of affirmative action in higher education admissions. However, the agency where I serve as commissioner, the U.S. EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, is charged with enforcing equal opportunity at work, not equity. Our mission is to prevent and eliminate discrimination, not impose equitable outcomes. So basically, what they're basically saying that th- their job is basically to make sure that you get hired for a job period. But you know what I'm saying? They saying that they're not responsible if the job that you're trying to get hires you for less than what they already paying somebody else. Meaning the, a job could hire a white person and pay them $25 an hour and hire you for the same position, same responsibilities and everything, and they pay you 20 or maybe less. So the commissioner is basically saying that he's not responsible for that. He just basically responsible to just get you in the door. Which, he may have a point there. Listen, that's just how it is in Babylon the Great. Poorly structured voluntary diversity programs pose both legal and practical risks for companies. Those risks existed before the Supreme Court decision today. Now they may even be higher. As a commissioner, I routinely conduct outreach to help employees and employers understand and comply with the laws of the EEOC enforces. I also keep a close eye on trends in employers' practices and policies. In my experiences, many employers, even large sophisticated companies, don't fully appreciate the distinction between what the Supreme Court previously deemed permissible affirmative action. And in context of higher education, admissions versus the employment context, these are distinct but similar statutory sections of the Civil Rights Act, Title VI and Title VII, respectively, that govern the education and employment context. Prior to today's ruling, the court permitted universities to use race as a factor in admissions based on an interest in promoting diversity, not so in the employment context. So they claim that the court could still that universities could use race as a factor in admissions. Like, okay, like, can we still use um, to make it seem like we're not racist? Can we still you know set aside a certain amount of admissions for Black and Hispanic students? But they're saying that right, you know, the ability to do so, doesn't apply for jobs. So if certain jobs want to go back to being all white only employees, they can. That's basically what he's saying here. You know what I'm saying? Like, understand what's being said here. Prior to today's ruling, the court permitted universities to use race as a factor in admissions based on an interest in promoting diversity. Not so in the employment context. The court has never blessed employers taking race-conscious employment actions based on interest on workforce diversity. Today's Supreme Court decision rejects diversity interests as justification for race-based university admissions decisions. This brings the rules governing higher education into a closer parallel and more restrictive standards of federal employment law. Employers generally are not permitted to take employment actions motivated by protected characteristics. The higher threshold for exceptions only proved the rule. Since the 1970s, the Supreme Court has authorized employers to consider race and sex only in very limited circumstances as part of voluntarily remedial affirmative action plans. So again, like I said, for employers, your sex or your gender is also taken into consideration as far as affirmative action hires. So again, for women, for being a female was considered a minority, so that counted. So it was like a black, but if you was like a black woman or Hispanic woman or Asian woman, you was considered a double minority. So you checked off more than one boxes as far as them meeting diversity hires. That's basically what they're saying here. These remedial plans must be temporarily narrow, tailored to the company or industry at issue, and justified by a strong basis in evidence that remedial action is necessary. A general interest in diversity or equity is not sufficient to allow race or sex motivated employers' actions, nor are references to societal discrimination or differences between composition of a company's workforce or society or the company customer base. Likewise, even in the limited context in which affirmative action currently is permitted, an employee still cannot use racial or sex-based quotas. You know what I'm saying? So that's for right now. But if they decide to go the other way and repeal that, then listen, a lot of these a lot of these jobs could do away with affirmative action hires just like that. Companies also cannot take race-based actions to maintain a demographically balanced workforce. So you can't like purposely hire, 50% white, 50% black, or 50%, you know what I'm saying? You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So, but again, that could all change if the Supreme Court decides to apply that to the workplace as well. Even though the court ruling today does not alter federal employment law, now it's a good time for employers to review their compliance with existing limitations on race and sex conscious diversity initiatives. So they're basically saying now would be a good time for these jobs to go over their diversity hires practices to make sure they following the laws so that they don't get caught up in case the Supreme Court decide to rule the other way as well with them as well. Companies seriously err if they evaluate the risk under federal employment law by mistakenly referring to now outdated now outdated standard for higher education administration, which they approve of diversity motivated affirmative action. And today's ruling only heightens those employers' practical risk by re-emphasizing the Supreme Court's rejection of diversity, nebulous equity, interest, or societal discrimination as justifying actions motivated, even in part, by race, sex, or other protected characteristics. Company continuing down this path after today may violate federal anti-discrimination laws. So see, this is where we at right now. So now they're basically saying if you decide in not to play ball, not to play ball, but they're basically saying that a lot of these companies with their hiring practices, they might have to go over to make sure that they walk in that thin line. Because if not, they could find themselves violating federal anti-discrimination laws, and they might get caught up in all kinds of lawsuits. So which to say this, listen, affirmative action in the workplace is about to be over too. So now for a lot of Black and Hispanic folks, you might start getting turned down from jobs or might getting let go altogether. A lot of you ladies that was getting lucked up and getting hired over men, that might just start coming to an end too. Let me read on. Moreover, these two Title VII cases, the Supreme Court may hear next term could have further ramifications for corporate diversity programs. Yeah, exactly. So eventually they're going to come back to the table and debate about this thing. Federal courts across the country uniformly hold that Title VII applies to hiring, promotion, and termination decisions. You hear that? Let me say that. Title VII applies to hiring, promotion, and termination decisions. But recently, the EEOC and the DOJ had advocated a broader textualist reading of what constitutes adverse action in the workplace under Title VII, and some federal uh, appellate court have begun to agree. This issue will be before the Supreme Court term if it agrees to hear Muldrow versus St. Louis and David versus Legal Services Alabama Inc. A more expansive view could have serious implications for certain diversity programs. The EOC and DOJ existing position is that Title VII bars discrimination in all actions affecting terms, conditions, or privileges of employment, including actions falling short on hiring, firing. Wait, hold up. The EOC and DOJ existing position is that Title VII bars discrimination in all actions affecting terms, conditions, privileges of employment, including actions falling short of hiring, firing, and promotion. This expansive reading of the Title VII could implicate a host of increasing populist race corporate initiatives, from providing race-restrictive access to mentoring, sponsoring, or training programs to selecting interviewees, partially due to diverse candidate slate policies, to try and execute or employee compensation to the company achieving certain demographic targets, to offering race-restricted diversity internships. Oof. So no more Black women only programs. Yeah, that's dead now. Race-restricted diversity internship programs or accelerated interview process, sometimes paired with euphemistic diversity scholarships that effectively provide a more compensation for diverse summer interns. So yeah, all that about to get done away with. You know what I'm saying? Summer internships, scholarships for only for this for a certain gender, a certain race, that's about to get done away with. Between today's wake-up call on affirmative action restrictions and what may come down the pike from the court next term on the scope of adverse actions covered in Title VII, there never been a better time for companies to take a hard look at their diversity programs. So yeah, listen, that lets you know what's coming down the pike, bro. I'm letting you right now. A lot of you ladies, listen, it's about to be ugly out here. You know what I'm saying? So let me get to the scriptures and, let me end it for right here. Let's go to you ladies. Isaiah 32:9. Rise up, ye women that are at ease. Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ears unto my speech. Many days and years ye shall be troubled, ye careless women. For the vintage shall fail, the gathering shall not come. Because yeah, again, I just read that, listen, all these stuff like race specific scholarships, race specific or gender specific internships and stuff like that. That listen, they're about to do away with that. A lot of these companies that was doing some of this stuff, like perfect example, the Goldman Sachs doing that Black woman only program. Where they train black women for like careers or something like that. Yeah, that's about to get done away with. So now it's gonna be back to like your merits, or you pretty much not gonna get a gig at all. Tremble, ye women that are at ease. Be troubled, ye careless ones. Strip you and make you bare, and gird sackcloth upon your loins. They shall lament for the teats. Yeah, all the good jobs, the pleasant fields, the career, all the careers and stuff like that. The fruitful vine, which these great jobs, these high positions. You know what I'm saying? Affirmative action is about to go to where the dodo. They already struck down the college admissions now. Next term, they're gonna go back and review Title VII and decide whether or not to repeal that too. And if they decide to do that, listen, a lot of the diversity hires and all that stuff, that's about to go the way of the dodo. And like I said before, the main benefit of affirmative action has been white women, but mainly recently has been mainly all women. If, if this shit goes, if this shit goes left, some of these companies might start letting a lot of ladies go and start hiring back men in their place. Just give you a heads up of what could possibly come down the pike. Upon the land of my people shall come up thorns and briars. Yeah, because it's about to be hard times out here. Yea, upon all the houses of joy in the joyous cities. So yeah, that lets you know. Listen, man, it's about to be. Listen, it's about to be really rough out here. So that's something you guys need to understand. There's something about to come down the pike. I just need you guys. What I'm saying? That you guys understand that. Listen, if this stuff goes, if it goes sideways, that listen, affirmative action about to be dead, man. And it's like, listen, I'm gonna hit this at the end of the stream. But I'm gonna say I'm gonna bring out one last scripture and I'm gonna end the show. And I'm saying this with this whole repealing the affirmative action, a lot of these mainly Esau, the Edomites, and a lot of these other nations, all this is gonna come back and bite them in the ass. Because the real reason why they're doing this is basically to keep their women at home and have their numbers, they birth rate numbers rise up. But all this is going to backfire and blow up in their face. And some of this was being intentionally done to slow down the advancement of the Israelites, the blacks, Hispanics, and the Native Americans, the children of Israel that's trying to better themselves. So it's Proverbs 26 and 27. Very good. Proverbs 26 and 27. Whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolleth a stone, it shall return upon him. And read that again. Whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolleth a stone, it shall return upon him. So yeah, basically, listen, all this is going to backfire on Esau. So Israel, just listen, just keep your head up and all that stuff, man. Keep your head up, keep the faith, and understand that the Most High got you, and the Most High gonna look out for you. You understand what I'm saying? Just keep your head up, keep the faith, and trust that the Most High gonna look out for you. This last thing I want to say before I end the stream is that they already repealed the abortion ban. They already repealed abortion. They just repealed affirmative action for colleges, and eventually they're gonna come back to the table and look at Title VII, which is the affirmative action for the workplace. Eventually about to be on the chopping block, and they have their way. What's that? Title IX, if I'm not mistaken. And if I'm not mistaken, that's AKA no fault divorce. So yeah, they about to undo a lot of these jacked up laws, man. But listen, just watch and pray, and just pray that the Most High got you, man. So that's just it. Again, if you guys enjoy the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend. And also, if you guys enjoy the content of this channel, please subscribe to the channel. And if you want to show your support to the ministry, the Cash App is in the ticker down below. $ I am Sham 12. Again, $ I am Sham 12. Thank you so much for your support. But I just want to end the show saying this. Thank you guys for watching. Just want to give all thanks to the Most High Yahweh. Ba'ashem Mashak Yahweh Shai. Just want to say Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Shalom.